Hello everyone, welcome to Dnyanadeep. In this UPSC simplified series, we are going to discuss one more question from geography, and this time this is the question from 2023 mains. One of the most trickiest question, I would say. In this question, there is a application of concept. Let's see what this question asks about. So it is about why did human development fail to keep pace with economic development in India? Fine. So that is the one simple line question, but there are a lot of things which you can unfold beneath this particular question. So it is asking about the failure of human development in India. At the same time, it is also suggesting that economic development has taken place. Well, fine. Now, general notion around the globe is if there is economic development, it automatically translates into human development. Now, we'll move on to the locus and focus of this particular question. The locus of this question is human development. Look at the focus of this question. There is some hidden part which has been asked in the question which is not so visible. Now, most of the candidates, they failed to identify what exactly they were supposed to address or from which subject this particular question was asked. Now, this subject was asked from geographical perspective, right? And in this particular question, you were supposed to identify geographical reasons which are responsible for lack of human development despite the economic development in India, right? So that is the trickiest part. Let us try to understand one by one what all could be written in this particular question. Now, to address this particular question or to write answer to this particular question, one basic thing you need to understand is the human development part. The one who is able to identify what human development means will be able to address this particular later part. Fine. Now, let us see how can we introduce. In introduction, you can go for a definition based approach. You can define what human development is, but again, that's a fairly basic thing, or that is something which has not been asked in this particular question. So we'll avoid defining human development in this particular question. I have a better approach. Better approach is based on fact. The fact I am going to mention is see, so and so, let us say XYZ is the human development index rank of India on one side. At the same time, for last few years, India's economy has grown consistently by so and so percentages. This can be my one fact based introduction, or I can modify later part. I can say that India is so and so the largest economy in the world, and despite being one of the largest economy in the world, its human development index rank is far below, right? 132 something you will find for 2022. So, having put these numbers, I am directly hitting the question. I am directly entering into the question because it is asking about the same thing. Human development is not there. When I say rank is very low, I am also suggesting human development is not there. When I am saying India is amongst the largest economies in the world, I am saying that there is a economic development, right? So my introduction is perfectly syncing with the question, right? It is giving you a context. Now moving further, I'll start with the body part. Again, as usual, I have split body into two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 here has not been asked, right? Look at the part 1. I have mentioned that you have to explain human development. Unless you provide a little bit of detail on human development, whatever you write next holds as such no meaning. To give your part 2 a proper context, I am providing dimensions of human development in part 1. I am not going to spend a lot of words, right? Maybe I'll spend some 20-30 words, not even 30. I'll wind up in 20-25 words. But in those 20-25 words, I'll say, see, so and so is the human development. Whenever we talk about human development, we'll talk about health, we'll talk about education, we'll talk about gender parity, income inequality, so on and so forth. Clear? So that is something I have addressed here. And now what I have to do, I will just have to find geographical reasons for all these things which have not been achieved well. Okay, so what I'll do now, I'll enter into geographical regions. Now when I say geographical regions, one reason I can highlight here is climate. Look at India's climate. India's climate is simply dependent on monsoon rainfall. India is very much dependent on monsoon rainfall. And overall, if we take India's climate, we find that it is an erroneous climate. Monsoon is erroneous. One year there will be a lot of rain, copious amount of rain. Another year there will be very less amount of rain, temporal variability. Then India's monsoonal rainfall has a spatial variability also. Some regions have good amount of rainfall, they thrive well. Other regions have paucity of rainfall, drought condition, frequent drought conditions, or frequent flood conditions. That is another problem, right? And this is something which results into erosion of income. Okay, so what happens is, when there is a climatic uncertainty, whatever savings you have made, whatever income you have, that income is not certain. Saving is not going to last. And that is why no matter what economic development happens, there will always be an income inequality. There will be rich and then there will be poor. And we are, time and again, we are witnessing that the gap between rich and poor in India is increasing. And why it has increased? If I have to give geographical answer or geographical perspective for that income inequality, one geographical perspective can be an erroneous climatic condition or erroneous monsoon. Take another part which is resulting into income inequality. Various regions of India are hit by natural disasters. Take example of eastern coast of India. Take example of states like Odisha, West Bengal. All these states are frequently hit by cyclones. And the result of frequent cyclone is, in these coastal areas, we do not have enough development. Now there is a regional disparity also. Economic growth is there. We have western part which is thriving well. Some northern areas are thriving well. But that economic growth is not resulting into distribution of income all throughout country. There is a regional disparity, which is nothing but an outcome of what? It is an outcome of the climatic condition or geographic condition. When I say other than climatic condition, let's talk about the resource distribution. In India, resource distribution is not even. And when resource distribution is not even, there is not going to be even development, right? So some part is developing, economic growth is there. That is the part which is providing economic impetus. Whatever growth we see, it is not coming from all the quarters of the state or all the quarters of the country. It is coming from a few select areas. Other areas which have some difficulties, which are emanating, which are coming from geographical conditions, are not at all contributing to economic growth. That is one part. But another part is what? Whatever economic growth India has achieved, they are not receiving the equal amount of benefit either, right? Because it may be that these are the very remote regions, and in these remote regions you cannot provide enough aid, enough resources. So this is the geographical perspective I am putting. Let's talk about health also. When we talk about the tropical type of climate, India has a tropical type of climate, and in tropical type of climate we have hot and humid conditions. Hot and humid conditions result into high disease prevalence. There are different type of diseases, communicable, non-communicable, both. But the disease burden in terms of communicable diseases is very high if we compare countries with similar economic size, similar size of economy or similar economic growth. Take any developing country or even developed country, the disease burden in India is very high, and the reason for that disease burden somewhere comes out of the climate, right? So this is my line of thinking, right? There can be like n number of points I can add. I can have multiple factors which are limiting India from achieving human development despite economic growth. So in this particular discussion, I have just given you a brief idea on what lines you are supposed to think, right? So you can add your points also. I have given my points, but I'll not stop at this particular point. I'll just quote some examples. Like I have given you regional disparity ka example. So I'll say, see, this part is rich, this part is poor, and reason is geographical factors. Okay. So that is how you are going to construct answer for this particular question. There is certainly not going to be a perfect answer. बहुत crisp और clear answer इसका नहीं होगा, because slightly vague question कहीं पे इसका आपको direct answer भी नहीं मिलेगा, ठीक है? But still, this is the line of thinking you are supposed to take. Moving on, now compulsorily I say, let there be questions where you will draw some map, draw some diagram, but this is amongst those questions where you can hardly draw any diagram or hardly draw any map. You can draw some infographic regarding the status of human development in India, or infographic regarding the level of economic growth that can be added if you really want to draw some diagram or map. But as such, there is no map or no diagram which is ingrained in the answer of this particular question. Now, what should be the ideal conclusion? I will conclude with a way forward. Way forward on what? I will suggest some way forward for achieving human development, right? There can be policy measure or any other measure to achieve human development. But one aspect which needs to be necessarily addressed in this particular part will be making sure that we are countering geographical factors, which are the reason or fundamental reason for not having enough human development despite economic growth. Fine. So with that, I end, and we'll see you in next session. Thank you.